Hi everybody, welcome back to AESL 563 American Idiom. Today we're going to be talking about idioms, about knowledge and education. Again, with me, Professor Undertree. Let's get ready, put on your idiom thinking cap, and let's learn some idioms. The first idiom that I want to talk about today is one of my favorites. It's go over my head. And it actually has two meanings. The one that we have in our book means impossible to understand. And that makes sense if we think about it as the stars and space and everything. And here in our picture we have a telescope. Mr. C has a telescope. And in the urban areas where we live, you can't really see anything with your telescope. But when you have a telescope out in the camping areas or more in the countryside, you can see so many stars. And if we think about it, but for a long time, people have looked up at the stars and wondered if there was life out there, wondered what was going on. So if we think about it, the stars are really impossible to understand. And so this is what over my head means, when something goes over my head. So my example is when G-Man talks about physics, it goes right over my head. And that's the first meaning of go over my head. Now there's another meaning too. To go over my head means to go to my boss, basically. Rather than coming to me with a problem, you would go over my head and you would go to the chair or the dean or even the vice president of the school. So that's going over my head. So an example sentence for that would be, rather than coming to me about the grade, the student went over my head and went to the dean. The next idiom I want to talk about today is a really fun one. It's one of my favorites, and it's be a bookworm. And I really like this because I'm a bookworm. Now, bookworms actually have negative connotations because actually with physical books, worms that get in are moths or bugs that actually eat the paper. This is bad because they're eating the paper. But if you think about it, what they're doing is by eating the paper, they're ingesting all the knowledge. So to be a bookworm, which an actual bookworm is negative, the actual worm that actually eats books is negative. But this is an idiom that we've taken and we've flipped it and we've given it a positive connotation. And so to be a bookworm means to love books and to love reading. My example sentence is, I've been a bookworm my whole life. Our next idiom is break the mold. And break the mold is interesting because, again, we have a negative thing, but it's being used in a positive way. So generally speaking, when we break something, it's not good, right? If you break a dish, it's a bad thing. When we think about creating things like dishes, if you're mass producing them, you would have a mold and you would pour the glass or the pottery into the mold and you would make all of these dishes the same way. So you have all of these dishes when you can buy and they're exactly the same. Breaking the mold means that we break the mold for which those dishes or those things are made, so it can never be made exactly the same way again. And the idiom means to change the way things are done, because again, we're breaking the mold so they can't be done the same way. And it's an innovative thing. So even though we have a negative idea of breaking something, it's actually used in a positive way to mean that I'm innovative and I'm creative and I'm doing something original that nobody else has done before. Our example sentence then is, the current COVID pandemic forced instructors to break the mold in the classroom. We could no longer do things the way that we'd always done them. So now we had to innovate and do new and exciting things. So break the mold is actually a positive idiom, and it's something that we're all doing every day right now. We're breaking the mold on life. The next idiom that we have is know it like the back of my hand. And this is also a fun idiom because theoretically you know your hands pretty well, right? You look at them every day, they're your hands. So to know something like the back of my hand means to know something really well. Now, one thing I want to point out here for this idiom is it's never the front of my hand. You always know it like the back of my hand, and that's just the way it is. So our example sentence for that is, I know the story in my new novel like the back of my hand because I spent so much time with the story A Tokoli Scorched Wing. So I know it like the back of my hand. Our next idiom is a fun one, and it's passed with flying colors. What it means is that you passed it very easily or you performed very well. You could say, my idiom class that I'm in with Professor C, I passed with flying colors because I just did my weekly check-in and did my homework. So I passed very easily or performed very well. My example sentence for that is, my students are passing with flying colors this semester, because honestly, it's pretty easy to pass our idiom class. Let's review the idioms that we have today. First we have go over my head, then be a bookworm, then break the mold, then know it like the back of my hand, then pass with flying colors. And these are 5 idioms that you can use to express knowledge and how you've learned things. So that's it for today. Short and sweet, 5 fun idioms. I will see you online next time. I just want to give a little shout out for my book with SSG Adam. We've just published the paperback version. I'm super excited about it. It's available now in paperback and also digital at Amazon.com. So I look forward to working with you again next time and studying idioms. See you online, everybody.